I see Ike Rudy.
Rhoda.
I see Rhoda. Yeah, Rhoda's there.
Esther, hi.
Hello,
Rabbi!
everyone. How are you?
Rabbi, we're here.
You're here? I'm here too. How are you?
Baruch Hashem.
Good.
You better have a good place tonight. We canceled everything. We want to be here with you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen.
Beautiful.
I'm sorry. I have to mute everyone because if not, I don't have to continue that sentence. Well, as always, it's a great pleasure to see you all. Bezrat Hashem, today we'd like to talk a little bit about rationality and emotions. We have the zichut to have this class sponsored by Rosalie and Ike Rudy. Thank you very, very much. This should be Bezrat Hashem for a prompt shidduch zivug hagun for his granddaughter Nazira Shoshana Bat Mazal Haya. Bezrat Hashem bekarov mamash. We pray for her to find the right boy, to get married, have children, beautiful family. May we always celebrate Zemachot together. Amen. As we advance in one of the craziest time in the United States of America on so many levels, and although the COVID-19 is a global problem, in this country it has taken a whole different turn. Political, so many ideologies and fights between people that come maybe from this or not. I just want you to laugh a little bit, so I'm going to tell you what's going on in Florida. Florida, at this point, we are number one everywhere in the world. It's Florida, Florida, Florida. The irony, Rabotai, this is crazy. The irony is that none of the numbers you hear are true. None of them. And I'll prove it to you with a story that happened yesterday to someone I know. Please listen up, you're gonna crack up. So in Florida, you go to testing centers. You could be waiting for hours. They tell you the waiting time is between 2 and 5 hours. So someone I know went to one of those testing centers. After an hour or two, he decided that he couldn't wait anymore. He had work to do, he couldn't wait. So he decided, you know what? Too bad, khalas, I'm gonna go and I'll come another day. The thing is like this, ladies and gentlemen. When you're waiting online in certain testing centers, they already take your information down and they give you a number. And with that number afterwards, they already have the information. So all you have to do is they put the swab in your nose, and then it's quicker. So they do the the introduction, preliminary information while you're online. This person who left, he got a message from the lab that he was positive. He never tested. Just got his name down. I'm sure you heard about the scandal that happened in Florida. I have in front of me a picture that shows, actually, if you want, I'm gonna share screen with you so you see what I'm talking about. There's a picture here. I don't know if you could see. On July 11th, there was already thousands of cases. Look at this picture. Positive at 100%. These are labs, there are 32 labs that had 100% positive rate. 3,528 positives at 100%. And then you had other that had at 98%, at 96%. They're not even on this list. How could you trust They tell you today there was 14,000 cases. Really? But if the labs, instead of having between 6 and 9% of positive rate, they have 100, how could you trust the numbers? They tell you, well, you have to look at the death rate. I'm like, okay, that's smarter, because the death rate, at least you know how many people died from the COVID. So again, I know someone, and I said this story over and over, but I know someone who knows someone who had a son who committed suicide, and on the paper from the hospital, the official report of death, it said COVID-19. So the mother of this boy who committed suicide went to the head doctor and said, how in the world, she's herself a doctor, how in the world do you write that COVID-19 is the cause of death of my son when he committed suicide? That's the numbers we have. Fine. So the doctor told me, you know what? Let's look at how many hospitalizations are happening. Maybe that's a better number. Well, let me share with you another screen. So, they say that one is more accurate. Sure. Well, look at numbers. The occupancy, July 13th, 2020. Florida hospital beds, weekly update. All beds, 77.1%, which is a normal rate. ICU beds, 79.5%. A week ago, 75.8, 77.8. This is what I call numbers that are being manipulated. I don't know by who. I don't know what's going on, but everything is being manipulated. The truth of the matter is, if somebody is positive in the hospital, even if, because now they test everyone, even if he or she came for something else, they will call that a COVID-19 patient. That has nothing to do with COVID-19, because the person is going back home, but he needed something with the heart or something with the leg or something with the arm. It doesn't matter. And you're right, Victor. It's all about flus. It's all about Masari, because they make more money when it's COVID-19 death, when it's COVID-19 patient. Rabotai, this is crazy. It means that even the scientific corps, even the scientific world, the medicine is unbelievable. You cannot trust any number, not from the lab, not from the hospital, not from the morgue, about the cause of this thing. And what has all this done to us, poor Floridians here enjoying the beach? All it has done to us is panic, fear. People are scared. These numbers are not true. I just showed you numbers, documents that I have on the triple account of how many cases, how many hospitalizations, and how many deaths are not true. Yet people are scared. And when people are scared, they make wrong decisions, because they make their decisions based on emotion, not on logic. At the same time, in the United States of America, there are a lot of other things going on. It's politics of revenge, of vengeance, of anger. Certain people on the other side of the aisle have not swallowed yet that Republicans are in the presidency. And they are using what's going on here as a political maneuver. And again, I'm going to share with you a screen, because this is something you must see. And in this screen, the truth comes out. Where we are, chopped liver. And in this screen, it's a tweet from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Did you ever hear about this lady? AOC. And she writes the following, I quote, if you can't read. It's vital that governors maintain restrictions on businesses until after the November elections, because economic recovery will help Trump be reelected. But how could you say that? You're an elected official. You're supposed to work for your people, for your constituents. She says a few business closures or job losses is a small price to pay to be free from his presidency. So she's willing to sacrifice the parnasa of the constituents of New York because she doesn't want to see Trump elected. So we're using anger, politics of anger, to go and to make decisions that should be based on logic and on the good for the economy. And by the way, if the economy is not good until November, it will have more time and will need more pain and it will hurt again until, lo alenu, many people will suffer a lot. The logic doesn't take place anymore. It's politics of anger. We've seen that with the rise in all the movements that you know based on racism, etc. Politics of anger. When things are driven by emotions, hate, revenge, and arrogance, no good things come out of this. I would like to share with you first what the doctors tell us. In the brain, you have different cortexes. You have the front cortex and the back one. You have four, actually. The front cortex is the one that reacts to emotion based on what you see immediately. And I quote what they say: the emotional brain responds to an event more quickly than the thinking brain, which means it takes longer for the brain, the back cortex, to process the information, to analyze it, to chew it, to swallow it, and then to come out with something logical. It takes just more time. So of course, your immediate reaction to something you see, something you hear, is what? Is emotional reaction. It's the first judgment that comes based on what you see. It takes longer to analyze and to come with a rational explanation, with another possibility that is not immediately perceivable by the eye. That's just nature. That's the way it works. There's a famous story that I'm sure you heard that Sefer HaChasidim brings. I'll bring it to you again. It's the great Musar we need to learn. The Sefer HaChasidim brings the story of someone, a Hasid, whose father, I have the text in front of me, whose father, before dying, said to his son, and he said, no, I'm not going to be around to help you, to direct you. But I command you, please. Ka'asher ata ko'es, when you get angry, when you get anxious, when you get nervous, atzor ruchacha, stop your anger, stop your emotion. How do you do this? Kevosh yitzrecha, control your anguish, or your yetzer, in this case, not yetzer, but your tendency to following your emotions. V'talin ka'ascha layla echad, and make sure that you do nothing for one night. You got nervous? You got angry? No problem. It's natural. But don't react on this. Wait one night. The next morning, you had time already to swallow it, to analyze it, to get your cool together. Now you can take a decision. The maaseh of this Hasid is that he got married, and when he was a young man, within the first year of marriage, this Hasid, he needed parnasa. So what did he do? He needed to go overseas. He left. He went far. And for a couple of years, he was away from his house. Doing business at the time was not like today, that you could make a phone call, you could have a text message, you could have FaceTime, you could have Zoom, you could come back home and go back to work. At the time when you went to work, it could be years. And sometimes the wife was aguna, she was by herself, but she's still considered married. He didn't give her a get. To make a long story short, this man, after a few years, many years, he comes back home. And he gets to his house and he sees from the window, he sees his wife who is hugging and kissing another man. And he takes out his sword and he's about to go into his house. I don't know if it's an allegory or if it's a true story, it doesn't matter. He takes out his sword, he's about to go into the house to kill both. And at that moment, he remembers what he promised to his father, to never make a decision on hot. Wait one night. Talin ka'atzcha layla achat. Make sure your anger sleeps with you for one night. He remembers that. He doesn't enter his house. He goes to the synagogue. He goes to synagogue. He spends the night there. And in the morning, Shaharit comes. And who does he see? The guy who was in his house. Before he gets crazy and he confronts the guy, someone comes to him and says, Shalom Aleichem, Aharon, how are you? So many years, you went for business, never came back. Oh, well, I had a problem. X, Y, Z, here I am. And the man says to him, let me present to you your son that you never met. And who was that son? Who was that person? He left his wife pregnant. When he left, he didn't know she was pregnant. And she had a baby boy who grew to be a young man. And that's who she was hugging and kissing. It was her son, who was his son. He says, thank you, my father, for giving me the best advice in the world to sleep on it. The expression, sleep on it. Don't take a rash decision. Why? Because psychologists tell us the emotional brain responds quicker to an event more than the thinking brain. You have to let it cool, to analyze. When you make a decision based on emotions, on fear, on hatred, on arrogance, on anything, the decision will not be good. You all know the famous Rambam, who says that when a father or a mother is upset at his or her kids, it happens. Did it ever happen to you? No, right? Well, to some parents like me, sometimes it happens occasionally. You get upset. Sometimes you're right, sometimes you're wrong, but you get upset. And the famous Rambam who says, as long as you're truly upset, don't say anything to your kids. Nothing. And definitely not by screaming or by, making big motions and showing anger. No. You know when you could show sometimes anger? To show seriousness? When you're not angry anymore. Because why? That's the depth of this Rambam. As long as you're angry, whatever you're going to say, whatever you're going to do, whatever decision is not logical. It's based on emotion. And emotions, they make a disaster when it comes to making decisions. When you're cool, then you make the right decision. Then you could show emotion, but you cannot be emotional when you do it. That's the Rambam. Don't be emotional. So why do we need emotions? Well, emotions are very important, ladies and gentlemen. Make no mistake about this. When the emotions accompany the brain, this is the most beautiful product. But when the emotions lead the brain, this is a disaster. When you do things that are logical and you accompany them with emotions, that's being a smart human being. You need that. If not, the world will be like a robot. Will be robotic. You need the emotions, but those emotions should not be leading your brain. Your brain should be leading your emotions, and your emotions just come and accompany your brain. And I would like to discuss with you that point in this week's parasha. In a very surprising way, we're going to learn a passage together that is extraordinary. I think this is a beautiful pshat on one episode in this parasha. In this parasha, we talk already about the Chalukah of Eretz Israel. Moshe Rabbeinu is being approached by some of the tribes who are already, nervous about where they're going to be in Israel. Are we going to be in the north? Are we going to be next to the beach? They all wanted the beach. Beach view? They wanted ocean view, everybody. So, some people came and said, beach view is not going to be for everyone. You're going to have maybe 4 tribes on the beach view. The rest of the people are going to have to be Yam Kinneret next to their Arab neighbors. It's going to be beautiful. Well, some 2 tribes, as you already know, Gad and Reuven, they approached Moshe Rabbeinu and they said to him, we have an extremely large number of animals. And they saw that the Yazer and Gilad areas were good for livestock. So the descendants of Gad and Bnei Reuven came and presented the following petition to Moshe. if we find favor in your eyes, may this land be given to your servant for a possession. Do not take us across the Yarden. Of course, you could imagine Moshe Rabbeinu, I don't understand. By the way, let's open a parenthesis of emotion. Can you imagine the emotion of Moshe Rabbeinu at this point? So I don't get it. We were supposed to get into the land of Israel 40 years ago. For 40 years, we've been turning around the desert, wasting 40 years and trying to bring a new generation into the land of Israel. And then you have these new pioneers who are going to start a new economy, a new place, a new everything into the land of Israel. This is the new face of the nation. And they come to me. I've been begging God, so many prayers and so many angels, please let me enter the land of Israel at any cost. And you have these people who are given the red carpet to get into the land of Israel, and they say, can we please not go into the land of Israel? You know how disappointed Moshe Rabbeinu would be? Sometimes I'm thinking, why didn't he die right then? You know, if I would be Moshe, I would have had a heart attack on the spot. Like, really? On the last day of his life, he has to deal with this? You know, when he thinks that he saw it all, there were so many complaints and so many problems that they had. And finally, they were about to enter the land of Israel. And to his surprise, this is what he has to deal with. It's terrible. Think about it. Moshe Rabbeinu gets very upset, as we could understand. And he gives a long Derasha. I'm not going to read it all, just one or two verses maybe. But he's most worried about the war. Really? You're going to reside outside? What about the other 10 tribes? They're going to go to war by themselves? It's not going to be so simple. They're going to have to conquer the land. Shall your brothers go to war while you sit here? Yeah, he was afraid. Maybe they're afraid of going into the land of Israel. He's really upset. He's bringing them again the story of the Meragelim. Are you like the spies who don't want to go in? He's really confused. What in the world is going on? Of course, Reuven, Gad and Bnei Reuven then approach Moshe Rabbeinu and say, oh, hold on. We may not have been so clear, but of course we want to go into the land of Israel, and we're going to help them, and then we will retreat and go back to outside the land of Israel. But make no mistake about this, we are going in to help our brothers, and that's what happened. For 14 years they went, they conquered the land of Israel, and then they went back outside of Israel. This exchange between Moshe Rabbeinu and Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuven has caught the attention of all the commentaries on Chumash. As much as you could go back and forth and trying to understand these people, it doesn't make any sense. Why wouldn't they want to try it in the land of Israel? They don't even know what it looks like. They don't even know how big it is. They didn't have the right report the first time. Why wouldn't they try? How do you know it's not big enough for your cattle? Why do you want to stay outside? This is a land that's been promised forever from Avraham Avinu. Why wouldn't you want to go there? You have nowhere else to go. Are you going to stay here? Yeah, we're going to stay outside the land of Israel. Why would you do that? Another problem is Moshe Rabbeinu is not inquiring what the intention is. He's just judging them. You know, you don't want to go to war with them? Why didn't he ask them? Abotai, I would like to share with you a perspective that is very, very important. You know, there are three places that really we could talk about the character of God. It would be on a personal level when Yaakov gives a blessing to God. But the best one is to look at the end in Vezot HaBeracha. When Moshe Rabbeinu gives the Berachot to all the tribes. And he blesses God and he says something incredible. I'm going to read to you and I'm going to translate. The Pasuk says, Ulgad Amar. We read it on Simchat Torah. Ulgad Amar. Baruch Marchiv Gad. And of God he said, blessed be he who enlarges God. Kelavi shachen, poised is he like a lion. V'taraf zeroa afkodkod, to tear off arm and scalp. Vayar reshit lo, kisham chelkat mechokek safun. He chose the first portion available. This is our sugya here. You know why he chose that one? Kisham chelkat mechokek safun. For that is where the lawgiver's plot is hidden. Who is the lawgiver's plot? Moshe Rabbeinu. Hold on. Moshe is summarizing the life of God. And here he's saying, I got it. We're missing an information in the narrative of the Torah in this week's parasha. When it says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants the Jews to be in Eretz Yisrael, and Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuven come and say, we don't want to be there. Why not? Just because you have a lot of money? Because you need cattle? Because you need a lot of green for your cattle? That's what it says in the story. But then Moshe Rabbeinu says, fine, you want to stay outside, stay outside. Why was he so quick? Why didn't he insist? What are you doing outside? We have a beautiful land inside. That was the dream of God. That was my dream to go inside. Wouldn't you go inside? He doesn't insist. We're missing something. And at the end, it's being revealed to us. And it says there, listen up, God did not want to abandon Moshe Rabbeinu to be alone outside. They were so connected to Moshe Rabbeinu that they said, wherever you are buried, this is where we want to live. And Moshe reveals that in Vezot HaBeracha. Vayad v'shitlo, again I read the pasuk. God, the tribe of God, chose the first portion, Reshit Lo, the one immediate. Why? I thought, Moshe said, I thought it was because of, they were afraid to go in, they didn't want to share, blah, blah, blah. No. Kisham chelka mechokek safun. Because there, Moshe Rabbeinu is going to be buried. They don't want to abandon Moshe Rabbeinu. This is incredible. The Sfat Emet says it is hinted in this week's parasha. In this week's parasha, it says at the beginning, they say Mikne Rav, they have a great amount of acquisitions. Umikne Rav haya livnei Reuven velivnei Gad atzum meod. It was an enormous amount of cattle. By the way, let's think for a second. Why did they have such a large amount of cattle and all the other ones did not? You don't know? Pardes Yosef explains, and he says because Moshe Rabbeinu's choice of food was the man. Man was so exciting. Moshe Rabbeinu had tzintzemet netaman. He had a basket with the man, always going around. He was so proud. Hamotzi lechem min hashamayim. God sends you a menu, take it. It's perfect. That's what you need. People had a lot of cattle from Egypt, and they grew the cattle. Many people, the Ibn Ezra tells us, they ate the meat. They ate the meat that they had. But Gad and Reuven were so close to Moshe Rabbeinu, says the Pardes Yosef, that they ate what Moshe Rabbeinu loved. Moshe Rabbeinu said, eat the manna. They ate the manna. They had much more cattle than all the rest because they never touched any of that. So they reproduced. That's so much more they didn't know what to do with it. So the cause why they were in this situation, because they were close to Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu told them, eat the manna, it's the best food ever. Don't touch what you have. And they paid attention to that. They were so close to him that when he died, they said, we cannot leave him by himself. We're going to leave the kever of Moshe Rabbeinu here in the middle of the mountain. We don't know where he is exactly, but we know he's there. We know more or less where he is. They said, we're staying here. We're not living here with the Jordanians. We want to stay on this side. So the pasuk, Umikne Rav, the Sfat Emet in the Hasidic Pshat, he says, Mikne Rav, a deep acquisition of their rabbi, of the Rav. Mikneh means that they knew completely their rabbi. They were so close, as if they acquired the rabbi, that they needed to be together with the rabbi. And that's why he says in the Pasuk, now I realize, Moshe Rabbeinu says, that what they wanted was a favor to me. This is the unexpected. Moshe Rabbeinu realized, and when he hears that, they say maybe the unspoken, Chasure Mechserad, missing something here in the Torah. He don't want to tell him because it would be disrespectful to talk about his death when he's not dead yet. But you say, okay, whatever, the cattle, the thing. But the real reason was deeper. They didn't want to leave Moshe Rabbeinu by himself. They wanted to be forever with Moshe Rabbeinu. Yet, with all of this, based on love and dedication for their rabbi, the Chachamim tell us in Midrash Rabbah that they made a mistake. It was still a big mistake. They quote a pasuk in Mishleh. The pasuk in Mishleh says, "Nachala mevohelet barishona." If an inheritance is seized hastily in the beginning, ve'acharita lo tevorach. At the end, it will not be blessed. And the Midrash tells us, you know who this is? Someone who has an inheritance quickly is Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuven, who had the first inheritance of the land of Israel, that they wanted to grasp this piece instead of going into the land of Israel. And what was the punishment? Acharita lo tevorach. At the end, they will not be blessed. What was the end? When they had to go to Galut, when they were exiled, who were the first ones to be exiled? Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuven were the first ones that had to flee. Midrash Rabbah said this was the wrong thing to do. Before we continue and we analyze why, I want to tell you another pshat. There's beautiful parenthesis. Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuven, before Moshe Rabbeinu died, they thought about the following and they said, if before Moshe Rabbeinu dies, we get the inheritance of this portion outside of Israel, then it's as if this portion is a part of Eretz Israel. And if this becomes a portion of Israel, it will be as if Moshe Rabbeinu entered the land of Israel. Because if he's alive in Cisjordania, and we are getting that portion, so then that's Israel. If that's Israel, then Moshe Rabbeinu entered the land of Israel. They were willing to do anything for Moshe Rabbeinu to be in the land of Israel. So much they loved Moshe Rabbeinu. But coming back to the pshat of the Midrash tells us it's not good. What they did was wrong. And you know why? Because once again, and here is the proof, that when you make a decision based on emotion, not only when it's negative emotion, but even positive emotion, it's wrong. When we studied the class, we spoke about all the negative emotions. Anger, terror, revenge, arrogance. All these kinds of emotions are all negative. But maybe if it's a positive emotion, it's good. Answer, also not good. Positive emotion like love to their rabbi. If the decision was based on this, it did not make sense. And that's the accusation of the Midrash. Why? Because if you love your rabbi, then go in the land of Israel. He wanted you to go in the land of Israel. He wanted you not to love him after he's dead. That's emotional, but it's nothing. What is that? Just guarding his kever? It's nice. It shows dedication. What do you learn from that? What do you get from that? Is that going to be a teaching for generations? No. That's just going to be emotional connection. And you can't leave the grave by itself. But going into the land of Israel, in the promised land, the Kiddushah is there, the Retzon Hashem, the Ratzon of Moshe, building together with the other brothers for eternity is much more rational, much more logical, and much more what the Rebbe would have wanted you to do. So we see again, building on emotions, making decisions based on emotions, even if they are positive, like love and dedication to the Rav, in this case, Moshe Rabbeinu. The Midrash is condemning this because he wanted them to do something else, to go in there and to build and to do something different. And I would like to share with you a personal anecdote that happened to me. Before I got married, I was learning in yeshiva in upstate New York, South Fallsburg Yeshiva. In the South Fallsburg Yeshiva, I had a great zechut to get close with one of the Gedolei Ador today, Rav Wachtfeugel, Rabbi W, as Ike likes to say, Rabbi W. You know, his name is too complicated to say. It took me 5 months to learn it. So Rabbi W is fine. And I had the great zechut to get mamash, such a special person. I always say, such a gadol, such a high level in Torah that I never saw. And at the same time, such a normal person. Such a normal person who really gives you the time just to talk, to smile, to be nice, good midot. Unbelievable. And the greater the person, the more impact it does. And I had the zechut to be close with him until today. I call him when I have a problem, when I need to make a decision or whatever. I need guidance, I need a beracha, whatever it is, I call him. And when I go to New York, I try to jump to the mountains and I try to meet him, and it's incredible. And I want to tell you the following, that I fought when I was in yeshiva to be able to get close to him and the family. And it was an effort, it was an investment, like anything in life. You have to invest some time, you have to go, get up early, try to get a connection with such a busy person. And I did. And I even got the ability to study with him Chavruta once a week, one-on-one, him and I, before Shacharit on Shabbat, from 5 a.m. to 7:30 a.m. every Shabbat. And I would go to his house, sometimes in South Fallsburg, upstate New York during the winter. Believe me, it's quite a walk. At 5 a.m., I would go there, and sometimes the door was locked, and I stayed outside for an hour or two waiting. The rabbi, sometimes he would come at 5:30. I'm sorry you were waiting. I just wanted to sleep at 4. I'm like, okay, don't worry about it. You know, but Baruch Hashem, I was zochet to have such a closeness with him. And when I got married, I had a dilemma, because my dream was to live there. It's a small community of people who live there. And I wanted to live there. And I told my Rosh Yeshiva, I want to live in South Fallsburg. And he told me, come, let's talk for a little bit. So we sat together and we talked, and he said, exactly this. Your emotions tells you that you want to stay here. Because of everything, because of what you know, because of what you study, because of your connections, etc. This is the emotions that your brain tells you. Your wife, now you're going to get married, she doesn't know this place. And this is not a very easy place to live. This is the mountain. There are no young couples that you could become friends with. She's coming from Mexico. She's coming from Mexico City. It's nice already. She wants to move to the United States. How are you going to take her to a place like this? And he told me, in life, you're going to have emotions and you're going to have logic. Always follow logic and take the emotions with the logic, but don't follow the emotions. And I was like, that was a teaching for life. I didn't consider for a second, I was a young man, you know, we think like boys. And the boy says, okay, here's the best. Here's the best. No, you're getting married to a girl. And this girl doesn't know a soul here. How are you going to do that? And as difficult as it was, I had to give over that chavruta to my best friend, who stayed there and still lives there and still studies with my Rosh Yeshiva every Shabbat morning from 5 to 7:30 a.m. And am I jealous? Yes. Do I want to kill him when I see him? Yes, absolutely. But there are many, many good things that happened after that. Is also that I saw that sometimes when you're under the shining light of a great person like this, you don't get a chance yourself to try to shine. Because it's so radiant, it's so strong, it's so blinding, the light of such a person, that you have no chance of shining yourself. And I see the people who stay there, and I'm still jealous that they still close to the sun. But at the end of the day, they never grew wings to be able to fly on their own. And he told me, you need to go to another place to find yourself. And as difficult as it is, you will grow wings to fly on your own. And I cannot thank him enough for that advice that he gave me. It was based on logic, not on emotions. Even when it's good emotions, even when it's emotions of love. Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuven had emotions of love, but those emotions of love were wrong. They were not logical. Sometimes it's difficult to breathe, to stay the night, to cool it off, and to then think and analyze again, and to move on to the next step, and to say, I have to follow the logic, and the emotions will follow. But the emotions on their own are not positive. They're only good when they follow logic. And we learn from this week's Parashat, this episode, that Bnei Gad and Bnei Reuven, although had positive emotions, but making a decision on that is not positive. We always have to make based on logic. We live days that we need to have a lot of logic, a lot of pausing ourselves to think and analyze rationally instead of making, the decisions based on emotions, on what people tell us, and we're being bombarded. We're just not allowed to think these days. And it's a big problem. We see from here how much we have to balance the emotions with the logic as an ingredient that give good tastes to food. This is what emotions are. And they're amazing, always when they're in the right direction. Thank you very much. And